Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Today on the podcast, we are talking about the myths of bankruptcy, filings, and misconceptions, all about it. Excited to have our friend here and, of course, shall I say podcast host, because that's what you are now, Michael. Michael Angel Dilella joining us live, the founder, advisor, and CEO of the Financial Counseling Center based out of, Los Angeles, California. You can reach him and his staff at financialcounselingcenter.com. And first and foremost, we want to welcome you back. How are you today?
Thank you for asking. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing the same. And we definitely always have a lot of things to talk about with very little time, but it's still plenty to talk about it in this subject matter. So the first thing that I will say that for everybody that's listening to us, that my personal opinion or information comes from not only 30 plus years of experience, but also because we filed over 4,500 federal cases in our team for the last 25 years. We're beginning to use the what happened to those cases as a history, as an opinion based on the voice of the clients, not necessarily what we think. Mm-hmm. These are experiences people went through. These are experiences that they started a case, they finished a case, they rebuilt their credit, they bought a house 2-3 years later, and people are very perplexed about those things because there are a lot of misconceptions about bankruptcy based on the consumer market being so aggressive that all the financial products want to do is get your payment every month, to make the interest every month, and the education that is necessary to protect yourself. Typically, it's not there at any level. And I'll give you a quick example. I had 2 professors of economics from USC visit me not long ago, letting me and asking me questions that a normal person would ask me. Mm-hmm. Someone who's not a professor, someone who doesn't have a master's degree in economics. And that kind of put it together for me. It was a big epiphany I had that day. To understand that everything we're talking about, it's not rocket science, it's not crazy stuff, but it's missing information. Mm-hmm. When you Google it, you're not going to find it.
That is
when
true.
You research, you're going to get misinformation. So one of the reasons why I guess we're open for networking with people through free consultations, because without spending 10, 20, 30 minutes with somebody, the consumer is kind of lost in this. And then you have other industries that are pulling against it, like debt consolidation industries. You got the credit repair industry. You got bankruptcy attorneys that don't have the time to sit there and explain everything to you.
Darn right.
So for me as a person, it's very important for your well-being and mental health and projections to have as much information as possible.
Transparency,
to make sure that, when you're all alone at home, that you think you know what you're doing. So that's one of the reasons we find that every time I see a new client, I have to spend a few minutes to debrief them from exactly what they're hearing.
Or you have your explanation of services online on your YouTube channel as well, right? So should we share that with everyone?
We do. And then you can look up Financial Counseling Center, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, what have you. Now with the podcast, we can obviously have that available as well. But that's definitely the purpose, and that is how we do it.
Beautiful.
So, first misconception. We'll talk about, break it down in an easy kind of way.
Oh, I was referring to your company. I clicked on the link again. I can't give you the link. It's too complicated to mention on air, but I know you wanted me to share it with them. So if you go to a Solid Mind Productions, it's there, and it's under explanation of services. How can we help you with your financial situation? So again, go to financialcounselingcenter.com for more and check out the YouTube videos. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. First thing that I hear all the time is, am I going to have a problem getting a job? Am I going to have a problem with the history? Am I going to have a problem with an application? Well, in our experience, I've never received a phone call, an email, a letter, a text, an email, anything from any of our clients that file bankruptcy that they ever had a problem with the application because of bankruptcy. One of the main reasons is because it's against federal rules for discrimination to discriminate against a bankruptcy for a job, an apartment, or credit. So that starts it off pretty good. Bankruptcy's been around for over 200 years. 2024, still the same basic rules of relief. The court wants to relieve and get rid of your debt for the purpose of helping the court system, to help you, to help the creditors find you in the near future so you can become a consumer again with them so they can make up for their losses. And that is why some of these things are actually, I've met people that haven't filed for years because they were afraid of something like that. And they punish themselves because when you file bankruptcy, as we know, you rebuild your credit within a couple of years. You can start saving money. You can get ahead. And if you don't have any consequences, then that's a pretty good thing. Now, before we move on to how to maybe rebuild your credit right after bankruptcy, one of the things that people need to understand is that when a federal judge gives you a discharge of your case, which is approximately 4.5 months after you file, there are no warnings, descriptions, paragraphs, or any type of disclosure from the federal judges that you have any consequences to doing this. So if after a couple hundred years in the books, you're not going to have a federal judge help you with that information, it's because it doesn't exist. It doesn't work that way. Otherwise, they would have an addendum to the discharge letting you know your consequences. And they don't. So whether you get rid of $500,000 or 50,000, it's the same thing for everybody. And that should be clear. So instead of listening to me, especially when people don't know who we are, we will pivot to that to show them that if a federal judge, obviously, it's not so concerned about what he's helping you with, then why should you be so concerned about something that doesn't exist? It doesn't, it's just all in it's a figment of our imagination.
Yeah.
That is going to Yeah. So it's very interesting that way.
Perfect.
And then now the second thing is I'm not going to have credit for 7 years, right?
Is that
I'm
true?
not gonna to do that. Well, that's what people think.
Yeah.
That is the myth.
That's what I thought.
It's gonna be on my, it's going to be on my credit for 10 years, which is actually true. However, the fact that it's on your credit for 10 years has nothing to do with rebuilding your credit. Rebuilding your credit is based on two basic words that manage the algorithms of your credit score, which is closure. So you have closure with a discharge of your bankruptcy.
Okay.
And usage.
Okay.
How are you going to show the banking system through AI and all the things that they do to catch up to you to find out what you're doing with your credit after you file?
Interesting.
For that reason, since any major bank makes $3 billion per year on just $25 of interest you pay them, in only 3% of the people who pay credit cards every month. And that's crazy money. So that means that they are looking for you after the bankruptcy if they can see that you're being responsible and you can get back on track. So the way that we have seen that happen is that, for example, Capital One has a dedicated website for rebuilding credit, which actually is like an old prepay card that people used to be able to get.
Wow.
Except that now they report on your credit, even if it's your own money. So that means that if you, let's say, put in $1,000 of savings after your discharge, and they recommend you use it like a checking account. Once you start using it like a checking account and you get the bill, you would want to pay like out of $1,000, $700. You leave 30% balance so they can make their money. And you want to pay on time, not 3 days late, on time. Once you do that month after month after month, other banks are monitoring this. Other banks are looking at this. And next thing you know, 9 months later, you get a Bank of America credit card for $500. And next thing you know, a year and a half later, your FICO score went up 100 points. And within a couple of years, your credit is back to normal. Obviously, it didn't take 7 years. It didn't take 10 years. And that's where people get completely confused. You can actually, if you look up, for example, how long does it take to buy a house after bankruptcy?
Yeah.
And Google it, 2 to 4 years will come up, not 7 or 10.
Interesting.
So even if you do some basic research, you will find what I'm telling you.
Wow.
Now, that means that you would have to have the right income, maybe a down
Uh-huh.
payment for a house, and you have to rebuild your credit, obviously,
Yeah.
anybody else without a bankruptcy. But it is not the horrible nightmare that if I file a bankruptcy, I'm not going to be able to do this for many years. And that is why, again, many people don't file because they feel they have to wait forever to do some of these things. Now, that happens with car loans. It's the same thing. If somebody is struggling with their debt and their credit score is not that high, they will struggle to get a car loan more than the person who filed bankruptcy 6 months later,
Oh, wow.
which makes no sense to the consumer.
Yeah.
We've been instructed and educated to
Uh-huh.
think, but always remember, from a business point of view, this is not personal. The bank doesn't care about you. They don't have a relationship with you. So when Bank of America says, "Good morning, this is your relationship manager. How can I help?"
Yeah.
That's not really a relationship you're having with them. It's strictly
Yeah.
a mechanical business relationship.
Yeah.
If you show them that you're back, the bank will behoove and they will appreciate and they will actually benefit themselves from your ability to rebuild credit very quickly. And then they multiply that times millions of people, and the money they make in profit is just staggering. That is why they get back to you as soon as possible. Now, without Google Analytics or the computer speeds that we have today, 10 years ago, that was not that good.
Yeah.
It would take time to catch up to you.
Yeah.
Now, within 2 seconds, they know that you can't file bankruptcy for 8 years.
Wow.
And if you can't file bankruptcy for 8 years, they have 8 years to play with you.
Amazing.
And that's why these things
Oh.
are the way they are. So it's a quite of an interesting thing that way.
Sure is. All right. Well, what's next? Hold on. Before we continue, got to remind everyone, financialcounselingcenter.com. You need to go to the website, and there's more information here. Michael Dilella joining us here live today on the Zoom. What are we up to next?
Well, what if I have to rent an apartment?
Good point.
Well, that's a hell of a myth. Well, if I file bankruptcy, I'm not going to be able to rent an apartment. Well, let me ask you something then. I would say to the consumer, if you're struggling with debt or you owe a lot of money, if I'm a landlord and I'm about to give you an apartment, if I have like 3 brain cells in business wisdom, I know that if I see a bankruptcy, I know a couple of things. One, I cannot discriminate against it
Okay.
because it's illegal.
Yeah.
Secondly, if you don't have the debt that you owe,
Mm-hmm.
your rent payment will be a lot easier to make every month. So if that's the case, why would the landlord worry about you? Because he also knows you can't file bankruptcy for 8 more years, so you can't get them that way. And you will have more money available to pay the rent on time. So from a business point of view, even landlords don't care about bankruptcy in that respect. There may be some cases where you have luxury apartments or people that go into a particular facility that have a waiting list of people maybe to rent, which is, it may happen here and there. But other than that, when you go and try to rent, you have no debt that you have to worry about. You're already rebuilding your credit. You can do bankruptcy for 8 more years. So even if you tell the landlord, yeah, I filed bankruptcy a year or 2 ago, but now I have a savings account, I'm ahead of the game, I have peace of mind, I would say that most reasonable people would not have a problem with that.
Wow.
And the same goes with the job description. If Jill is going to hire somebody,
Yes.
who would you like to hire? The person who's struggling with bills or the person who gets her paycheck and is super happy that she can save some money and is very happy about the job, she can save money, get ahead, but the person who has to pay and spend the whole check on bills at the end of the month, they're not going to be that happy working. And this is where, even from that point of view, it makes a tremendous amount of difference even to an employer.
Yeah.
Again, you're looking at it the right way, that if you did file the bankruptcy, you're going to be a better employee. That is logical. It's practical. It is the way it works. Unfortunately, as you well know, we've become a society of being triggered by things, of being very emotional about things. And sometimes our ego and our pride will get in the way of our logical way of thinking, which is okay. That's what humans do. But from a business point of view, I am here to maybe clarify that just a little bit more.
Got
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
so something like that. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny. You're teaching me, and I'm sure there's plenty of listeners out there that are like, wow, didn't know this, didn't know. And just curious, we're speaking in terms of this is, statewide, or this is just, Los Angeles, just California. Just want to make sure.
Federal law across all states.
Got it. Good to know. So this is for everyone.
And within the filing of the petition, every state will have different exemption laws, different exemptions that they protect you with. But in California, I can tell you, you can have $699,000 of equity if you own your house for over 1,250 days, and you can qualify for bankruptcy. You can have $1.2 million in your retirement, and you can still file for bankruptcy. You can have $30,000+ cash in the bank, and you can still file for bankruptcy. Most people don't have any idea about any of that. And every state has their own rules for exemptions. But that's because the government is very well aware that you're not filing bankruptcy for them to destroy you, for them to put you out. You're filing bankruptcy because if you have a proper discharge of your bankruptcy, everybody benefits. The courts benefit because they don't have to collect the money. The creditors benefit because they get you back as a business in the future. You benefit because you're happier. And the founding fathers 150 plus years ago were drafting the laws of bankruptcy based on those principles and that philosophy. That is why anything to do with my service and my business has been completely turned upside down by the consumer market, because for obvious reasons. They just don't want you to know that. So that is kind of what we have found out all this time. One of the last things that before we wrap it up that we may want to mention is that when you file bankruptcy, you're going to go from an hour and a half meeting with us. We do a means test, which means we analyze your income and expenses to make sure you qualify under the rules of the court. Once you qualify, you take a debt counseling certificate over the phone. It takes half an hour, 40 minutes. You pay $24. You get certified to file. It's a mandated certificate by the court. You have a meeting with our staff attorney. We file your case. You have a Zoom meeting 4.5 weeks later. You don't have to go to court anymore. They ask you 5 questions, and then you're done. Then within 2 weeks, the U.S. trustee will do what is called a no asset report. And within a month and a half, you get a discharge of your case. 1 day later, if you win the lottery, it doesn't matter. 1 day later, if you inherit some money, it doesn't matter. Once the case is closed, you're on to starting a new business. You're on to starting a corporation if you want. You're on to get a new job. It doesn't matter, which is another myth, which people think that it's going to chase them for a while. The bankruptcy is going to be in their back. And it's actually the opposite is true. The court wants to close the case. They want to have closure. And that is why the system works that way.
Interesting. Wow, this is fascinating. Just for those that may not know, because I know we've spoken a lot, like you mentioned, you've talked to me more than you talked to your best friends lately. But just, I just love, by the way, also just to mention that this is a family business, right?
My wife and I, working for 17 years together. Yes.
And clearly with your experience, with your background and knowledge, I just love that you spend so much time focusing on educating the public as well as doing your job. So I know you do a lot of time, half the time doing all this. So I just want to thank you for that.
You're very welcome. It's necessary.
Yes.
And we have the luxury to do it. which is a good thing. Most professional people seem to have no time for anything.
Yep. All right.
I,
Good.
I learned from my dad being my mentor since I was 13 years old. If you can't contact your client right back, you've lost control of your business.
Yep.
And basically, whether you talk to a doctor, an attorney, I have people that pay attorneys thousands of dollars, and they tell me that the guy hasn't called me back in a week. So unless he's in jail or in the hospital, there's no excuse for that, right? But
Yeah.
this is how lackadaisic and how lazy our professional business has become. Not our, but overall professional people seem to want to be busy all the time, but they forget. Like I tell everybody, thank you for doing business with me because you feed my 15-year-old son every day. And I appreciate everything. That means I'll be at your beck and call anytime you need me. That is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But we don't find that often, unfortunately.
Got
You
it.
know?
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Well, let me ask you this. In your time here, you've helped so many people over the years, and I just love the fact that you are still in business, still eager to help people and really support, so many. So again, we're talking myths and misconceptions of bankruptcy filings, and we're grateful you're here. Continue, and we're going to talk about some of your amazing reviews too.
Yeah. Well, I want you and I want everybody to know that one of the reasons we get up every day, one of the reasons that my own pursuit of happiness with my little life that we've created for ourselves is exactly that, the contribution to other humans, other people that we're trying to do by simple educating them in the right way. If I can
Mm-hmm.
change your life, I can change what you can do for the next few years to better yourself. That feels really good for us too. That's what keeps us going, basically. Money is not everything in life. It shouldn't be. To a lot of people, it is. But we are very, very content with that. We're very happy, to be able to share that.
Beautiful. Absolutely. And amazing reviews, right? And that's what it's all about. Comes down to you helping your customers. Did you want to share any of those experiences with our listeners today?
Well, I know that if anybody would simply go to Yelp and put Financial Counseling Center, they would be surprised to find out maybe that we have one of the highest algorithms of anybody in my business in California. Out of 40 million people, we have one of the highest algorithms and 6 million accounts. And that's why I made a video on social
Wow.
media that I told you at the beginning of I think one of our first one podcast that we did, that we got an actual letter from the CEO of Yelp and the co-founder of Yelp, Mr. Stoppelman is his name. And he said that they researched our algorithms in their systems, and out of 6 million accounts, we had one of the highest review cycles that they've ever seen, which is quite impressive for a small business, basically. I mean, we don't have that many clients, but we've been around for a long time. And since we do our job, and I do not like to make money where people pay us for things that they shouldn't be paying for. So even if I lose money with a client, I rather lose money than to do something that's unethical. And that is one of the reasons why people find us to be so honest, because no matter how they deal with us from the beginning or the end, and that includes my wife, Tamara, they will find that to be true. So I'm going to respect you the same way I do today. A year later, when you call me after you pay me, I'm still going to take the same amount of time to help you. That's how people know who we are. And that's why when you read some of the reviews, I talked to Michael 4 years ago. I did this, and now I called him. He was amazing, and he helped me out. He didn't ask me for any money. That's why. And that's a good service for you.
Thank you so much. Well, I love this. If you go to the Yelp Center, amazing. I'm just popped on it before, and I'm going to pull it up here just so I could see. There's so many great review highlights. I went to Financial Counseling Center, met with Michael looking for some help with a large amount of debt I've been burdened with, and it's when I click on it, I have to log in to read the rest of it. I'm sorry, but there's someone else saying you're so informative, so helpful. You're amazing. Tamara and John assess my situation, prepare me, and all the required documentation. But again, I can't click on it because I'm not logged in, but they're saying great things. I love it. And the photos and the videos as well of you and your staff is amazing. So go to Yelp, check it out, and go to financialcounselingcenter.com. And we want to thank you so much for being here and going over some of these myths and misconceptions today.
You're very welcome. And hopefully we can see each other again. We'll see how we do that. And then, you take care. It was really a pleasure to meet you. And if you're ever in Los Angeles, you're more than welcome to come visit us too.
Thank you so much. That is so kind of you. I love keeping in touch with people that I've met along the way. And I really appreciate that. I'm wishing you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving. And looking forward to the next time we connect. We'll say till next time, okay?
Thank you.
FinancialCounselingCenter.com. Bye-bye, Michael. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.